Okay, sorry about that. I'm back. Had to make a quick adjustment to the slide set. As I was about to say, if you have any questions, go ahead and go into the questions feature of the GoToWebinar, and you can ask a question. I'll have it up, and if you have any questions, I'll either try to handle them while they come in, or I can do it at the very, very end. We are recording this, so the plan is we'll be sending out the slide set as well as a recording. I think you may actually get the recording twice. If you're kind of on our normal partner email list, it may come via the actual GoToWebinar, and then also it may actually come on one of our typical National Weather Service emails as well. So hopefully you'll get it, that kind of thing. Okay, so with that, let's move forward. The overview of kind of what's happening right now with Tropical Storm Beryl, it does have winds right now of 60 miles per hour. It's moving through the southwest Gulf today. It will likely strengthen back up to a hurricane, or what the Hurricane Center thinks, back on Sunday, tomorrow, as it continues to move northwest and then approaching the middle Texas coast. What we've seen over the last 24 hours, if you've been kind of following this for multiple days, you know, the models have been very, very inconsistent of kind of where Beryl was wind up going to go. Changing to that over the last 24 hours now, the consistency is really starting to kind of hone in on particularly the middle Texas coast, and then of course weakening as it moves inland. We still think because of that particular track, the main impacts for our south central Texas area will primarily be across the far east of south central Texas, and particularly that threat mainly is going to be the rainfall that probably comes with the tropical system. And at the very bottom there, you kind of see, with any sort of landfalling tropical system, isolated tornadoes along rain bands are always a possibility, and that particularly on the east side or on the northeast quadrant of the landfalling system, as well as that's also where some of the strongest winds are going to be. So we could get some wind gusts over tropical storm force across the far eastern areas of south central Texas, especially like the eastern areas of, let's say, the Cape Cod region, that kind of area. Because of that, then the overall threat levels are going to be very, very skewed toward the east and southeast sections of south central Texas. This map is not for I-35. This map is not for the hill country. This map is primarily for the eastern side of our south central Texas zones. So you can see, for the most part, the wind, the river flooding, and the tornadoes are all very limited. And our highest threat as of right now is the flooding rain, because that is typically the biggest threat that we do have with a landfalling tropical system here in south central Texas. Here's a great overview slide. You can screen capture this. This is what we've been actually putting on social media. It's got some of our key messages, things that I just kind of already talked about, all kind of put onto one slide. What is on this map, though, is the 10 a.m. advisory that came out from the Hurricane Center. And on it, you can kind of see the initialization point. It will be a forecast to remain a tropical storm all the way through Sunday morning, and then strengthen back up to a Category 1 hurricane on late Sunday into early Monday before it makes landfall on Monday, and then quickly getting kind of picked up and going off to the northeast. But again, our impacts should primarily be on Monday, maybe some lingering stuff on Tuesday, but primarily our biggest rain chances out east will be on the Monday timeframe. And then a quick message that we're still messaging the real big hazards along the Texas beaches, especially with rip currents and dangerous swimming conditions throughout this weekend and into early part of next week. Here's a current satellite view of Tropical Storm Beryl. It was looking rather weak overnight, and you can kind of see by the thunderstorm kind of cluster that's developing right over the center, it's getting its act together again. So it's looking a lot more impressive right now than it was maybe 12 hours ago as it came off the Yucatan. During the conference call, we were discussing this with the Hurricane Center. This is a possible sign that it's in its re-strengthening sort of phase, but there is a lot of dry air to the west and southwest of the storm, as well as some pretty decent shear right now. So that's why they're expecting a gradual strengthening into tomorrow before it makes landfall on Monday. So when it comes to the probabilities of tropical storm force winds hitting the Texas coast, you can see those probabilities are rather high, with the most likely time of arrival on the Texas coast, middle Texas coast, Sunday evening into the overnight hours on Sunday, and then further inland probably on Monday. The probabilities for us across counties such as Lavaca County, DeWitt County, Fayette County, those far eastern sort of counties of ours, has decreased just a bit in this latest advisory. But we're going to continue to watch the wind threat and to kind of see that if there is a possibility, and it's a very small possibility right now, if the track changes a little bit, or if the strength, the forecasted strength of Beryl increases a bit, we may have to put a few of our counties under a tropical storm watch or warning before landfall. We'll probably know later today with the 3 p.m., 4 p.m. advisories that come out. But anyway, just want to kind of throw that out for those folks that are in the far eastern areas of South Central Texas. We may have to do a tropical storm watch or warning before this is all done. For those of you along with coastal interests, the current storm surge forecast along the Texas coast is not gigantic, but it is there. It's 2 to 4 feet in the south part of the coast, 2 to 4 up toward the Houston area, and the middle Texas coast, where we expect the landfall to occur, upwards of 3 to 5 feet. If you have more questions about storm surge and so forth, you can contact or go to the local web pages of the Houston, Corpus, Lake Charles, and Brownsville offices. They have more information about their storm surge forecast there. So as far as our threats, again, mainly mentioning the flooding threat and the heavy rain threat. This is a threat graphic that kind of shows as you go from west to east, the threat increases to where the far eastern sections of our jurisdiction here. So we're talking about the, Lee County, Fayette County, Lavaca County, DeWitt County, portions of Gonzales County, even eastern portions of Bastrop County. This is where the highest threat will be for heaviest rain, and then thus some sort of flooding threat. I would say it's, as of right now, kind of localized flooding. It hasn't rained in a while, okay, so we can take some water. And then especially for the rivers, we're expecting kind of just minor flooding at this point, especially with the forecasted numbers that were kind of being given to us. And this is what the official forecast is looking like. This is out to day 5, so all the way out through about Thursday or so, when it comes to how much rain we think is going to be falling from Beryl. And you can kind of see that you can pretty much pick up the track of Beryl coming right up the middle Texas coast. And this is, of course, where we think the highest rainfall totals will be. Multiple inches, several inches, however you want to kind of word it. I hate to kind of use actual numbers right now because there's so much fluctuation sometimes. But, along the Interstate 35 corridor, officially here, we're expecting maybe a couple of inches of rain. That may be kind of pushing it. We're going to be looking at whether or not that happens or not. But this storm historically is on the smaller side. And typically the rainfall happens along and east of the path. So that really doesn't bode well for getting a lot of good rainfall along Interstate 35 or into the hill country. We do think it's going to be mainly to the east, but of course, any fluctuation of the storm strength where the track is going to adjust this sort of rainfall forecast as well. And so keeping up with the forecast is going to be very, very important over the next 48 hours. So this is a probability chart kind of showing the probability of getting greater than 2 inches of rainfall. And as you can see, going from west to east, our probabilities increase like we expect, because that's going to be closer to the path of where Beryl goes. So again, Interstate 35 area from San Antonio up to Austin, we're having probabilities less than 50% of getting 2 inches of rain or more. That increases as you go east. This is the chances of getting 4 inches of rain or greater. And again, obviously, as you head east, the Interstate 10 corridor, as you get past Gonzales over toward Houston, is where we're going to have our highest probabilities of that. And of course, that's also then where we're going to have our highest chances of river flooding and flash flooding as well. So a lot of time between now and Monday as to what can happen. So we're going to continue to watch it. The excessive rain outlook coming from the Weather Prediction Center, again, shows this concentrated area, mainly along and near the path of where Beryl is expected to make landfall. That is going to be our highest risk of getting excessive rainfall, as we would expect. And less chances, obviously, as you go west. So unfortunately, it looks like the areas that need the rain the most, our western areas of South Central Texas, will likely be missing out from that. With any sort of landfalling tropical system, there is typically a small threat of tornadoes. These tend to be weak tornadoes, but they do tend to happen along rain bands. and on the east side of the actual landfall point. So what that would mean is that if the landfall point is going to be across somewhere near our far eastern areas of south central Texas, that would be primarily where we would expect a small sort of tornado possibility. It's too early to tell whether or not there's going to be any sort of tornado watch issued or anything over the next 48 hours. I would expect if the path stays the way it is, that mainly Houston's area would have the higher impact of possibly getting some weak tornado activity, and not necessarily our region, but can't rule that out at that point. So to kind of wrap it up, the key takeaways. Again, the forecast track of Beryl has not really shifted much in the last day, which kind of really points toward the higher confidence, or the increasing confidence, that we think it's going to be Middle Texas coast that will limit our impacts overall to pretty much our far eastern areas. And those impacts could include the several inches of rain, the isolated tornadoes, and even some gusty winds. It's not unheard of that if let's say a Category 1 hurricane is making landfall at the Middle Texas coast early Monday, that on Monday that we could be getting some tropical storm force wind gusts, especially across our eastern areas. So wind gusts to 50 miles per hour, is that plausible? Sure it is, across the far east. So we'll have to continue to look at that. Again, areas along Interstate 35 are not going to be seeing, we don't think, significant effects from this storm. And of course, continue to monitor Beryl and whether or not we need to issue any sort of watches or warnings concerning the tropical storm force wind possibilities across those far eastern areas of south central Texas. So our next briefing will be at 5 o'clock. The new forecast information should all be coming into the system by 4 o'clock. That'll give me about an hour to get some new slides together and to send out and to give us any sort of updates that we're going to have and that we're going to give at 5 o'clock. So the plan is to be giving these twice a day, these webinars twice a day through at least Tuesday. Now, it could be that if the system changes a lot, gets out of here quicker, drops off, or whatever, we'll adjust. And if we have to not do so many webinars, we won't do those. But as of right now, I will stand by and take any questions in the questions feature if you have any. If not, you are free to drop off, and we'll see everybody back at 5 p.m. So I'll stick around for a couple of seconds here and see if there's any questions from anybody. Okay, there's a question that came in. How does strengthening of the storm over the next 24 hours affect its path in and through Texas? If it gets stronger today overnight, will it take a more northwest westerly path? The models are really consistent right now. So I don't know, let's say it does increase significantly for, in the next 12 hours, and it gets to the hurricane force much sooner than what everybody expected. The trend earlier had been that, yes, the stronger forecasted storm had a little bit more of a northerly and easterly sort of path. I guess that's technically still plausible like that, but still, the Hurricane Center has been very adamant about the consistency over the last several model runs. So I think we're going to just kind of stick with that as of right now. How long for the slides to be sent out? We hope to within the hour we'll get all of those kind of sent out along with the recording. Insight on travel between Austin and Houston on Tuesday. Will roadways be open and drivable? Of course, that all depends on how much rain, right? Even with several inches of rain like that, obviously, I think, the main corridors of Interstate 10 and stuff, unless there's some catastrophic rain event, should primarily be open. Now, side roads and side streets, it'll all depend on how much rain happens on Monday. It does appear that most of the effects will be getting out of here by Tuesday. There's still going to be some lingering rain chances. Don't think that there's not going to be a rain chance, especially in between Austin and Houston on Tuesday. But it looks like the bigger impacts will have already been kind of leaving the area there. Yes, it is going to be the same link for all of the webinars, including the one at 5 o'clock today. What is the effect on the Houston area? They're doing their webinars right now, to be honest. So I don't have a lot of information on what Houston is expecting. You saw some of the graphics that I was showing actually has information all the way to the Houston area. You can kind of see the rainfall totals Again, as of right now, they're not talking about catastrophic sort of rainfall totals because the system is going to be moving at a decent speed. And it is going to be a very, very small system, they think, much smaller than average for a typical hurricane or tropical system. So that should limit overall effects, but you know, some localized flooding and some rises on rivers and stuff would be expected where you have a tropical system or a hurricane, you know, moving on the Texas coast. So obviously kind of check on their forecast webpage as well for the latest forecast information for Houston. I'll continue to kind of talk about regional sort of weather too on the upcoming webinars. Okay, well, that's all the questions that I see coming in. So with that, I'll give it another 5 seconds, and then we will log off, and we will see everybody back, if you would like, at 5 p.m. for a further update. Thank you, everybody.